this has now become a 3-part series. There's a link in the description below to catch the first part of this analysis. The second part is also in the description, and now we're looking at this Aleph Tav solar eclipse trio, these 3 eclipses, which are being dubbed the Great American Eclipse. We're looking at it with a different angle this time. And it's really amazing what I think we're going to discover here tonight, because I have looked at different types of overlays. Okay, natural disasters, terrorism, different types of events. And what I found, the more I looked, is the more just insane this analysis has become in a really cool, really awesome way. And I can't wait to get into it tonight together. I am Abraham. We are overcoming Babylon right here, right now. Thank you guys for joining me. I know I'm a little behind schedule here. Just had a lot to look at. So let's take a look at this real quick. Again, if you didn't catch part 1, don't worry. I'm going to bring you up to speed. Okay. I think I already have, but there's these 3 eclipses that happened from 2017 to 2024 over the United States of America. These solar eclipses are omens, omens for our country, omens for the future, omens for what God is actually doing in the earth. And they're not just any kind of omen, though. He gave us a specific language, Hebrew. He gave us Hebrew. He's speaking to us in an ancient form of Hebrew. And instead of what we know today as modern Hebrew, he gave us what looks like an Aleph and a Tav, which is the beginning and the end, the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And it looks like he's telling us, hey, this is the beginning of the end of your country. And again, we looked at Little Egypt, the fact that there's an intersection in Little Egypt, there's an intersection in San Antonio, Texas, and there's also an intersection somewhere over there in Bend, Corvallis, Albany, Oregon. But tonight, actually, what I'm going to show you is that we can get a little bit more specific about these things, because we really need to be looking at the new Madrid Fault Line, the Balcones, I believe that's how you say it, or Balcones fault line in Texas. But also there's another fault line called Cascadia that extends from Oregon all the way over to Northern California. And all of these have important considerations moving into the future. Now, I'm not saying I'm expecting an earthquake. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, this is so deep. You guys are in for something really special tonight. What I'm saying is, you look at the historical patterns of, for example, we're going to spend most of our time tonight with the new Madrid Fault Line, and you're going to see what I'm seeing in just a moment. This is way deeper than what I had ever anticipated it to ever be. This is going to be huge. Thank you for joining me. And I just kind of want to recap some ideas real quick before we get into today's talk, because oh man, we need to talk about the new Madrid Fault Line. I mean, FEMA said 300 billion is estimated to be the economic cost of damage should an earthquake event ever take place in that region, because of the dense population, because of the proximity to so many structures, buildings. It's a flashpoint of some really naturally bad disasters that could happen in that area. Obviously, a big earthquake 7.0 or greater is definitely something that could happen. But again, I'm not saying that it will. I'm not saying I'm necessarily expecting that, but it's something to be paying attention to, especially from a historical lens. But I want to, again, just recap some ideas of what we talked about on Wednesday, was it? I'm losing track of time. And we have, my goodness, we have what? 73 days until this April 8th eclipse happens. Is it 73 days? Did I have that right? Something like that. Yeah, 73 days. Today is January 26th. We just have a little bit of time before we see the grand finale of what God is orchestrating in the earth. And there's just, I don't even know where to start with this one, to be honest. There's just so much to look at together. It's overwhelming. But remember last time we were live together, I talked about, okay, Little Egypt. We got to look at the symbolism in the name and the numerology. Remember, there was Carbondale is like right smack dab center of Little Egypt. I know some people say it's Cairo, but to me, I mean, I'll just show you. It's definitely looking like Carbondale is in the crosshairs there. Carbondale is way closer to the center. And it, carbon has 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, 6 protons, 666. Carbondale. There's human sacrifice history there, and it looks like God is judging the fact that abortions are now taking place in that region. Ever since 2022, there have been abortions in that region, and it looks like, okay, that's what God is showing us. Remember, and so as we consider that tonight, that I just want to recap what we talked about. It looks like God is warning us about genocide in the form of abortion. And I'll read this comment. Someone left a comment in the chat, or was it it was actual comment on one of the last videos. I can't remember which one it was, but I just want to read a little bit of this comment. Shout out to you guys, because you guys have really good insights. This is from one of our community members. He said, the 3 X's of the 3 eclipses symbolize the 3 genocides that have been done in the name of pursuing the American dream and way of life. X over Little Egypt is marking the genocide of abortion that murders millions of innocent victims every year. X over San Antonio is marking the genocide in the name of Big Pharma, or Pharmakia, right? And obviously, 2020 and 2021, warp speed was the latest example of all that, but this has been going on for a long time, as we pointed out with the history of Saint Anthony, the Saint Anthony religious order, and how they basically have hijacked the medical system, and how really a lot of crimes have been committed by the medical establishment. This is something that we talked about with San Antonio. And I really like, again, just to wrap up what this one of our fellow community members said, the X over Oregon stands for unnecessary wars fought globally and overthrow of foreign nations for the American dream. And I remember, that's what I told you guys, that I think the reason why that intersection is there is because of the Oregon Trail. We expanded westward, conquered natives, continue to conquer. Our ancestors did anyway, like we didn't do it, right? But our ancestors conquered, pushed westward. Obviously, the Alamo was over there in San Antonio, pushed southward. There was all these wars fought for American expansionism, and there was a lot of atrocities committed. I'm not saying that America's necessarily inherently evil and bad. I mean, you can definitely make a case for that with all the Freemasonry, secret societies, and all that nonsense. Overall, America is better off than a lot of other countries, but God is saying, I'm judging you for it looks to me like he's saying, I'm judging you for expanding your borders, which is against Torah, and triple genocide of the natives, of, all the foreign wars, of the medical system, of abortion. And I think those are the things that I think are really on the table from all the analysis that we put on the table. Okay. So I just want to bring you up to speed with that, especially if you didn't catch those last lives. And I just want to also, before we get into today, I really want to remind you of something. Genesis chapter 5, again, we've already talked about this. San Antonio, Eagle Pass is another one we're going to be looking at today. Eagle Pass, like things in the border are heating up right now with Greg Abbott going against the federal government, and 25 Republican states going against the federal government. And so Eagle Pass, San Antonio, we looked at the names, right? Names are really important. Where God is putting these X's on the map for us to look at, it has to do with names. It has to do with the significance of names. I just want to remind you how important names are. Is that cool? Check this out in Genesis chapter 5. Adam, the genealogy of Adam. Do you know that if you go through the entire book of Genesis chapter 5, go through all of the names, and this is what you're going to find when you look up the Hebrew meaning for each name. I did this for you. Adam means man. Seth means appointed. Enosh means mortal. Canaan is sorrow. Mahalalel is the blessed God. Jared is shall come down. Enoch teaching. Methuselah his death shall bring. Lamech the despairing. Noah comfort. So the message of salvation, the message of the fact that God is actually going to come down in the form of a man, God shall come down. Jesus Christ, Aleph and Tav, beginning and the end, Alpha and Omega, is going to come down, and he's going to give his death. So God is going to come down as a man. His death is going to give the despairing comfort. It was prophesied through the first 10 of the holy line, the holy seed of Adam, not Cain, who killed his brother Abel, but Seth, whom God raised up in Abel's place. It was prophesied that Jesus would appear as a man, God. Again, this is where the Jews don't get it. A bunch of Seventh-day Adventists don't get it because they say he's Michael the Archangel. A bunch of people, the Mormons, don't get it. They say he's the spirit brother of Lucifer. So many people don't understand the gospel because they don't know how to actually look at names. Most people don't understand prophecy because they don't understand names. Names. God, when God gives a name to a place, or men are inspired to give names to places like Little Egypt, we should be paying attention to that. That's what I'm trying to say. But look at this. Let me just read it. Man appointed mortal sorrow. And then, but, right? We can add, but the blessed God shall come down, teaching. His death shall bring the despairing comfort. You have the whole plan of salvation right here through names. And we were told prophetically that God would come down as a man. His name was Jesus Christ, teaching. The word became flesh, dwelt among us, tabernacled among us, taught us the way to salvation. He said, I'm the only way. Believe on me, and he who believes on me shall not be put to shame. And let me tell you something, guys. I have not been put to shame since believing on the name of Yeshua. So that is something I wanted to share with you. So again, as we're looking at this, pay a close attention in the names. New Madrid Fault Line, Cascadia, Balcones. Pay attention to Little Egypt. Pay attention to all those things that we've talked about, and you're going to come up with some pretty cool conclusions on your own. I'm just giving you guys my synopsis, but I know that you guys can come up with some really cool stuff. I think together, though, as a community, we're really going to nail this and get to the bottom of some things. Also, before we go deeper into today's talk, I did make a little bit of a mistake talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. Remember, the question I asked you is, why is God speaking to us in a Paleo-Hebrew alphabet? Why is he speaking to us in Paleo-Hebrew alphabet? Because I believe Jesus' words. He said, not one yod or dot, not one pen stroke of the Hebrew will pass away from the law until all of it is fulfilled. Not all of it has been fulfilled yet. The regathering hasn't happened. The New Jerusalem hasn't happened. So, like, it's not done away with yet. It's not fulfilled, only in part. And so we know that God's words have not been altered unless Jesus is a liar. Of course he's not. So we're told not one yod or dot's done away with. So again, I mentioned this. I won't spend too much time on it. I was like, oh, the Isaiah scrolls written in Paleo-Hebrew. And this is in the Qumran caves. And this causes a lot of confusion for people. It's not written in Paleo-Hebrew. I do understand that. Okay, I made a little, I kind of, it was a little misleading how I said it. The Yod-He, Vav-He Tetragrammaton is. What you'll notice about a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls is that the name of God is written in Paleo-Hebrew. Like right here, I have a little blue arrow pointing at it. You'll see that the name of God is written in Paleo-Hebrew. And let me show you this other screenshot of just some of the other scrolls. It's not just the Isaiah scroll, it's the other scrolls also, especially the Leviticus Paleo-Hebrew scroll, which is all written in Paleo-Hebrew. But the Tetragrammaton Yod-He, Vav-He, Yahweh, Yehovah, Yahuwah, however you like to pronounce it, it's in Paleo-Hebrew. I just thought I'd point that out. So my point is still valid. I just wanted to make sure that you guys weren't, again, I'll admit when I'm wrong on something. I don't have any problem with that. But in the Qumran caves over there, yeah, there's a lot of Paleo-Hebrew stuff. And so my point, again, if you missed it last time, I'm just going to reiterate it real quick. My point was, why is God speaking to us in Paleo-Hebrew with these eclipse signs when his language, he said, is not going to be done away with or altered in any way? How come he's not speaking us with the inspired Masoretic Hebrew text, which has been around forever? And again, my point to that is, I believe, again, I can't prove it. Like 100, we're always gonna, like, all we have is evidence to go off of. I didn't live there. I don't know. I can't go back in time and have a time machine. But what can I can tell you with my conviction and just what, again, I'm just going off of Jesus's words in Matthew chapter 5. I believe that the Paleo-Hebrew is just the language of the lost tribes, and that's why he's speaking to America with Paleo-Hebrew, the Aleph and Tav of the olden times of the Northern Kingdom, because I believe that they developed their own alphabet, especially after the dispersion, and that's what they use. It was a modified Hebrew alphabet, and it's lost tribes language. And again, that validates my whole point that America is the #1 lost tribes nation of our modern last days times. It is the lost tribes nation, the leading lost tribes nation with the most Hebrew ancestry and Israelite blood in it from all 12 tribes. The lost tribes of Judah, the south, and the lost tribes of Israel, the north. They're all here. So yes, in the Qumran caves, a lot of Paleo-Hebrew stuff was found, but I'm telling you, don't get misled by that. Jesus said not one yod or dot would be done away with or ever be lost, which I think means that the text was preserved always the way it is in the Masoretic, and the Paleo is just the lost tribes language stuff. So that's what Qumran caves have from those Essenes, solar calendar, sun-worshipping, weird cult people. Essenes are very strange. I've talked about that as well. Okay, so we're looking at the New Madrid Seismic Zone, guys. This is really big. This is actually where the Aleph Tav cross is, or the Aleph Tav sign is appearing. It's appearing over the New Madrid Seismic Zone. Have you looked into this before? This is massive. Let me just read to you a little bit of this, just Wiki. We're going to look a lot at Wiki. Wiki actually has some pretty decent stuff. I've, obviously double checked as best as I can. So the New Madrid Seismic Zone, NMSZ, sometimes called the New Madrid Fault Line, is a major seismic zone and a prolific source of intraplate earthquakes within the tectonic plate in the southern and midwestern United States, stretching to the southwest from New Madrid, Missouri. The New Madrid fault system was responsible for the 1811 through 1812 New Madrid earthquakes and has the potential to produce large earthquakes in the future. Since 1812, frequent smaller earthquakes have been recorded in the area. Okay, that is massive. There's so much with what I just read. This is huge because we're going to talk about the War of 1812. How many times have I told you that we're in a war cycle right now? Absolutely massive. We're in a war cycle. I've been talking about this. We're in the World War III cycle. Oh my goodness. The fact that in 1812, which is also a war in American history, a lot of people are probably rusty on. If you're rusty on it, we're going to brush up on it today. The fact that, oh my goodness, I'm not going to interrupt. Let's take a look at so what would happen if the NMSZ actually started having movement and it started becoming awake and active with a bunch of earthquake activity? Well, in a report filed in November 2008, the U.S. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, warned that a serious earthquake in this zone could result in the highest economic losses due to a natural disaster in the United States, further predicting widespread and catastrophic damage across Alabama, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and particularly Tennessee, where a 7.7 magnitude quake would cause damage to tens of thousands of structures affecting water distribution, transportation systems, and other vital infrastructure. The earthquake is expected to result in many thousands of fatalities, with more than 4,000 of the fatalities expected in Memphis alone. And of course, I'm not gonna like go through this because they're like, oh, well, here are the probabilities. Here are the chances of this sort of thing happening, right? And they're going to go and give you some kind of statistics based more off of science. But what we do here at Overcome Babylon is we combine biblical analysis with what God is actually showing us in advance with science. But God comes first before the science. And what I'm telling you is the fact that there is war brewing right now in the United States with the southern border, with Israel and the Middle East, with Ukraine supporting them. There's already war happening. If history repeats itself like it looks like it might, we might actually see the New Madrid become active and there might be some movement there and it might actually be very catastrophic. It's very possible because did you know that there's a place called Caddo Lake? Caddo Lake is actually right there on the border between Texas and Louisiana. And it's in the northern Harrison County and southern Marion County in Texas and western Caddo Parish in Louisiana. The lake is named after the Caddoans or Caddo Native Americans who lived in the area until their expulsion by the United States in the 19th century. The U.S. forced most of them to move west to Indian Territory. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I want to focus on like crazy. Check this out. According to that Native American tribe that got kicked out of there, right? The Caddo, according to the Caddo legend, the lake was formed by the 1811 through 1812 New Madrid earthquakes. Guys, I'm going to show you in a second the Google map on this. This lake is massive. And according to the legend of the Caddo, this lake did not exist before the earthquake of 1811 through 1812, which we're going to look at. There may be some truth to the legend, as Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee has been documented as formed by that earthquake as well. But most geologists believe the lake was formed by earlier. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Most geologists, okay, I'd rather go off the Native Americans. They probably, they're not Freemasons. They probably have more truth in their documentation of things than all the controlled narrative that we're fed by Hollywood and the media industrial complex. Check out Lake Caddo here. Check this out, guys. Look how massive that lake is. According to Native American legend, this didn't even exist before the New Madrid earthquake. And let me just go ahead and zoom out a little bit. You can see, again, I'll show you in a second, the New Madrid, I showed you kind of on the map. Oh, it's over here in like Missouri area. But the New Madrid, the effects of it are so massive because of the way the tectonic plates and everything are shaped. But this lake is said to have been formed by the earthquake there. I mean, this is massive. Now let's take a look at, again, that April 8th, 2024, a solar eclipse. Guess what? It's actually going through almost on the center line, right through Caddo Lake. This is, so right there, that red button on screen, that is Caddo Lake. And it just barely misses the exact center, but you better believe that the solar eclipse is going to be visible in the Caddo Lake area. This is massive, guys. This is so massive. Not only does the solar eclipse go through Caddo Lake, but it also goes through the New Madrid Fault Zone. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. Now, let's take a look at what happened back in those days of the War of 1812, shall we? Let's take a look now. Let's take a look. The War of 1812, well, right before the war, just a few months before the war started, guess what? There was a solar eclipse. Oh, guess what? It was visible in the 13 colonies. They could see it. Because remember, American independence, we talked about this last live. American independence, 1776. But it wasn't, the Revolutionary War wasn't officially over until the Treaty of Paris of 1783. And just 3 decades later, in 1811, you have a solar eclipse that the 13 colonies can see that thing, okay? They can. Again, America's freshly formed. It's just a baby country. And because they're just a baby country, well, the British, well, they're still a little bit salty about that war that was just fought 3 decades earlier, and they kind of start stirring up problems for the original, the original colonies and those newly independent nation of America. There's friction between the crown and the colonies once again. The solar eclipse was the warning before the war. Okay, you should have alarm bells going off in your spirit. The solar eclipse of those days in 1811 was a warning before a war started between America and the British just a few months later. Take a look at it. Let's take a look at it. The War of 1812. War of 1812. It's also called the British-American War. It was fought by the United States and its indigenous allies against the United Kingdom and its own indigenous allies in British North America. Remember, at that time, the UK still had control over like Nova Scotia and different northern territories. It was called, in Canada, it was called British North America, right? Only the 13 colonies got their independence, but a lot of the, Canada and a lot of the northern areas were still under occupation of the crown. It began when the United States declared war on 18th of June, 1812. When did we see the eclipse? Well, September of 1811, right? There was a solar eclipse there that the 13 colonies saw. So just a few months later, boom, you got war. Although peace terms were agreed upon in the December 1814 Treaty of Ghent, the war did not officially end until the peace treaty was ratified by Congress on 17 February 1815. So you had a 3-year war that was accompanied by a massive earthquake on the New Madrid. That was accompanied by a solar eclipse just a few months before the war started. Now, let's take a look at those earthquakes real quick, okay? Before we talk more about the War of 1812. The 1811 to 1812 New Madrid earthquakes were a series of intense intraplate earthquakes, beginning with an initial earthquake of magnitude, guys, check this out, oh my goodness, this is so big, 7.2 to 8.2. On December 16th, 1811. So again, when did they see the solar eclipse? September 17th. When did the earthquake start? 2 months later, right? 3 months. October, November, December. 3 months. Boom. You have earthquakes happening there. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen again like clockwork, but man, you bet it's something to be paying attention to, because my goodness. Followed by a moment magnitude 7.4 aftershock on the same day. Then you have 2 additional earthquakes of similar magnitude followed in January and February of 1812. Guys, you have 4 earthquakes. It's a series of earthquakes. And again, it was all preceded by a solar eclipse. You guys can't make this stuff up. And a war? We're going to talk more about the war in a moment. Guys, come on. Is history repeating? I think I hear something in the background, man. I'm pretty sure I heard some minds blowing on that one, guys. Again, thank you for being here live. God bless you guys if you're catching the replay, okay? Oh my goodness, man. This is maybe the event X that the elite knew was coming, and now they're engineering a civil war. on that southern border. Because why does everybody care about our borders all of a sudden, right? Come on, guys. If you don't see through that, I don't know. God bless you, but this is they know what they're doing. Okay, God is in control. He's in charge. He's the one. He's the sovereign over all this. But I'm telling you, the elites know how to manipulate cycles. They know how to set up their whatever they want to set up according to numerology and all the paganism that they're involved in, including witchcraft and all kinds of stuff. Okay, but okay, those earthquakes, guys. We had 4 earthquakes. They lasted from December of 1811 all the way to February of 1812. The New Madrid is huge, guys. It is huge for our nation's history. Again, I was never taught this in history class. I don't know about you guys. I was never taught this in history class, and these are massive. Like someone pointed out in the comments. Yeah, massive earthquakes, 7.2 to 8.2. Can you imagine? And we're not even talking about. We're going to talk about Cascadia in a moment. Guys, they're talking about a 9.0 over there is due. We're in about a 3, there's about a 3 to 500 year cycle on the Cascadia. We're going to talk about that later, but they're thinking a 9.0 is possible, very likely up to 20 to 30%. We'll talk about that in a moment. Oh my goodness, this is just the one we're really going to focus on in New Madrid tonight because there's so much history loaded into it. They remain, this is what it says here, they remain the most powerful earthquakes to hit the contiguous United States east of the Rocky Mountains in recorded history. The earthquakes, as well as the seismic zone of their occurrence, were named for the Mississippi River town of New Madrid, then part of the Louisiana Territory, and now within the U.S. state of Missouri. The epicenters of the earthquakes were located in an area that at the time was at the distant western edge of the American frontier, only sparsely settled by European settlers. Contemporary accounts have led seismologists to estimate that these stable continental region earthquakes were felt strongly throughout much of the central and eastern United States across an area of roughly 50,000 square miles and moderately across near 3 million kilometers squared. Whew. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake, by comparison, was felt moderately over roughly 6,200 square miles. So we're talking from 50,000 versus 6,200. Guys, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. But the reason why, again, why I think this is something we should be paying attention to, and the reason why I think it is actually likely, I'm not saying to necessarily expect it, but it is possible, is because there was a war, okay? And literally the White House was burned to the ground. Did you guys know that the White House was on fire by the British? The burning of Washington was a British invasion of Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States, during the Chesapeake campaign of the War of 1812. It was the only time since the American Revolutionary War that a foreign power captured and occupied the capital of the United States. Following the defeat of an American force at the Battle of Bladensburg on August 24th, 1814, a British army led by Major General Robert Ross marched on Washington, D.C. That night, his forces set fire to multiple government and military buildings, including the White House, then known as the Presidential Mansion, and the United States Capitol. Guys, are we looking for the burning of Washington, coupled with the New Madrid Fault Zone being active, coupled with this solar eclipse that we're about to see? I can't help but wonder if history is maybe not necessarily repeating, but man, it is going to rhyme. It is possible that it is going to rhyme, and it scares the hell out of me. But what's cool is that God promises protection. That's why I started with that gospel message in Genesis chapter 5, guys. Call on the name of Yeshua, call on the name of Jesus, and he will set you free from all fear and stress that's about to happen to the land. Leviticus 26, verse 32. Because people refuse to follow God, because they refuse to walk in his statutes, obey his ordinances, keep the Sabbath day, don't eat pork, don't eat shellfish, eat what's clean, do what's right in his eyes, follow every word that comes out of his mouth to the best of your ability, not in a spirit of legalism and pride, but in a spirit of humility. Because people are not willing to do this, Leviticus 26:32 says, I will bring the land to desolation, and your enemies who dwell in it shall be astonished at it. Guys, our border is being invaded right now. I talked about this in a recent live. I only did it on Rumble because I went really deep, and there's a lot of stuff that, well, it's too hot for this platform. It's too hot for the mainstream, okay? But if you did not check it out, it's, let me see if I can find it real quick for you. It's called the Darien Gap Prophecy. The 2023 eclipse over the Darien Gap reveals a very specific agenda. You should be aware of it. And we are being invaded right now. The United States and European countries are being invaded like crazy. The UK is being invaded. we are being invaded. What God is telling us is that I'm going to do something that even your enemies who are invading your land are going to be astonished at it. And well, that matches what God is telling the United States, which I've shown you again over and over and over again, that Ezekiel 6 and Ezekiel 7 is talking to end times America. He said, I will stretch out my hand against them and make the land desolate. In Ezekiel 6:14. Yes, more desolate than the wilderness toward Diblah and all their dwelling places. Then they shall know that I am the Lord. I'm not going to read it over and over again, but in Ezekiel chapter 6 and Ezekiel chapter 7, which I told you is end times America, God says, they shall know that I am Yehovah, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the Lord. Then you shall know that I am the Lord. Then you shall know that I am the Lord who strikes. Then you shall know that I am the Lord. And what I'm thinking is, guys, that something is about to happen that is going to be so obvious. It is going to be so obvious to people. Anyone who has wisdom, it doesn't matter if they're working at the gas station, doesn't matter if they're working at the Walmart greeter, they're the Walmart greeter or a cashier at Target. Anybody with wisdom. You can be wealthy, you could be very, very smart, but you can be an engineer at NASA and not have wisdom. Let me tell you, anybody with wisdom, from the gas station to the grocery store, is going to be able to put the pieces together, and they will know that it is Yehovah. They're going to be like, wow, God did something. God did something in my land. You know, I heard about God. I thought God was maybe real. I wasn't sure. Now I know he's real. Now I know that there is a God. I think there is a great awakening coming. I've been talking about this, and all the virgins, remember the virgins parable? I think it's Matthew 27, if I'm not mistaken. All the virgins are going to wake up in one night. And there's going to be those that are ready. They got the Holy Spirit. They got experience. They've been casting out demons, walking in power of deliverance, walking this walk out. There are virgins that are 5 that are wise. They're going to be ready. But there's 5 that are foolish. They're going to be like, hey, give me some of your oil. Give me some of your Holy Spirit. Give me some of your experience. Give me some of that walk. And they're going to have to say no. But I think a great awakening is coming, and they shall know that there is the Lord doing something in our midst. Is that not what we're seeing here with the fact that the 1812 war, it looks like the White House might burn again? It's repeating itself. One thing I forgot to mention is that the War of 1812, what really started it, let me just show you this little, because I had to brush up on this too, guys. I mean, look, I'm not the best historian out there, but what you should know is that there was the reason why the British and the Americans had contention, and they were, the war happened in 1812 and everything, is because the British just wanted more maritime trading routes. They were kind of getting, territorial. It's all about expansion, imperialism, and all that kind of stuff, really. Wars are always fought over resources and stuff like that. And they just, the British were just wanting to be dominant and show force, and really had to do all the trade. I mean, just to boil it down. And so that, it started with a little bit of, contention. The British started blocking off American ships from accessing certain trade routes. Kind of reminds you of what's happening in the Red Sea, right? The British started, intimidating and harassing American ships, at sea. And so it started with all that. And again, we're seeing, if you look into the War of 1812, you're going to see a lot of parallels to what's happening with America and its Middle East, where it's been imperialistic over there. And the Houthis, Yemen has had enough of it. All of the Middle East has had enough of it. We're obviously pulling troops out now. Oh, we're leaving Syria, they're saying in the news. Oh, we're leaving all these, bases in Iraq now. I don't know how this, it's already looking pretty bad for the United States as far as stability. Now you have 25 Republican states that are saying, hey, we want our border to be protected. We stand with Texas. The federal government is now facing the possibility of almost like mutiny, secession by Texas and many other states. It's not necessarily that with all of these signs that God is showing us that we're necessarily to be expecting earthquakes, although I'm making a very strong case for that. It could be that he's just showing us that the land is going to be divided. And he's pointing to Cascadia, the fault line over there, we're going to talk about in a moment, the New Madrid and Balcones. He's pointing towards these, saying the land is going to start to become divided and you will be conquered by your enemies. Oh, by the way, I will be doing something that you will know that I am the Lord. It sounds like he might actually activate the earthquakes as well. It looks like all of it is kind of coming to a head. It's all kind of converging. All the bad stuff that we could have ever possibly imagined is all kind of starting to happen. Now, here's something else to consider as well in light of all these things, okay? The curse of Tippecanoe. And this, shout out to Jeff Fletcher. He's one of the researchers behind the scenes, that really helps. He helped me a ton with today's just putting together all the pieces. I bounced ideas off of him like crazy. I was hoping he'd be able to hang out with us tonight, but Jeff is not available. Shout out to you, brother. Curse of Tippecanoe. This is very interesting. This is also known as Tecumseh's curse, or Tecumseh's curse, the 20-year curse, or the zero curse. It's an urban legend about the deaths in office of presidents of the United States who were elected in years divisible by 20. According to the legend, Tenskwata, leader of the Native American tribes, defeated in 1811 at the Battle of Tippecanoe by a military expedition led by William Henry Harrison, had cursed the Great White Fathers. Again, guys, we're going back to that era, 1811. Tenskwata cursed the Americans, the Great White Fathers. And since that curse of 1811, interesting timing, since 1840, 8 presidents have died in office. 7 of them were elected in years that were divisible numerically by 20. William Henry Harrison, 1840. Abraham Lincoln, 1860. James A. Garfield, 1880. William McKinley, 1900. Warren G. Harding, 1920. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1940. John F. Kennedy, 1960. 2 former presidents elected in applicable years, Ronald Reagan, 1980, and George W. Bush, 2000, did not die in office. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. You know where I'm going with this, right? Biden, elected in the year 2020. You divide the year 2020 by 20. What do you get? You get 101. Biden is susceptible to, and could possibly be under the curse of this Native American fellow by the name of Tenskwata, who cursed the Great White Fathers. It is very possible that could happen as well. Guys, I told you this was going to be a deep one, did I not? I told you this was going to be a deep one. This is massive, man. This is massive. Wow. So that's on the table as well. And how many times have people said, oh, they want to get rid of him? How many people have speculated about this? Oh, they need to get rid of him because he's stuttering. He can hardly speak. He's stuttering. He was elected in 2020, guys. You can't make this up. It's divisible by 20. The curse of Tippecanoe is possible. Possible. Guys, there's so much here. How are we doing so far? Are you guys keeping up with me? This is big. We're just looking at the new Madrid. We're just getting started, right? Massive to say the least. Totally agree with you also, Star Martin. Ooh, man. We're just getting started, guys. What I want to talk about too is, hey, another thing to pay attention to with all this, financial stuff. Let's just look at some financial history real quick, okay? What we should know about 1811 is that, that lake. Oh, what was the name of that lake again? I'm not super, my memory kind of, Caddo Lake. The thing about Caddo Lake is it actually allowed access to the Mississippi for all the surrounding region, all the way up through Shreveport, Louisiana. So Caddo Lake was really a good thing, even though the earthquake was nuts and it caused the lake to be formed according to native tradition. So there were some positive outcomes from all those earthquakes in 1811. What I want to show you next is inflation from the year of 1811 to the year of 2024. Guys, I think we should be paying attention to the fact that our financial system really is in disarray. It's really about to crumble. If you look at 1811 and you just start looking at inflation, I just want to point this out to you real quick because it was brought up to me and I think it's something we should take care to pay attention to. 1811, U.S. inflation, the inflation of the dollar was really stable until, well, you got the Federal Reserve made in 1913. In 1910 is when they got together in the Jekyll Island, and got secret plans to put together this whole plan to centralize the monetary system of the United States. Then you go through history and something happens right around here. There's an inflection point in 1970. That's when the United States gets off of the gold standard. Rather than being backed by physical gold and silver, all of a sudden the U.S. money supply became backed by nothing. Paper, debt, military might, imperialism, and all these things. And look what happens. Inflation goes absolutely through the roof. And here we are today. A dollar is no longer a dollar. $100 is no longer $100. $100 from 1811 could have bought you $2,000 worth of things in today's money, relatively speaking. $2,341 to be exact. That's the real value of $100, adjusted for inflation and all that. So buying power, that just shows you, wow, down the absolute toilet. This is where we are. And so I want to take a look at something real quick because I think it's really fascinating when you look at these types of numbers and figures. Well, there was another solar eclipse in 1970 when the United States was taken off of the gold standard. We were taken off the gold standard. It was all paper money, print at will, print as much as you want. What's interesting about this one, it was visible March 7th, 1970 over all of the 13 colonies areas right there. And I don't know, is that something to be paying attention to now? What I think we should be paying attention to is the fact that these are some of the bailouts since the 1970s, really. Because as soon as they said, okay, we're no longer backed by anything, we're no longer backed by gold and silver, guess what? All the politicians started bailing out their best friends. So you have Penn Central Railroad bailed out immediately in 1970. That was a $3.2 billion bailout. And this is in 2008 dollars, so it's more money now, right? But so all the bailouts started happening, right? So this is the centralization, the socialization, so socialism, communism, because of bailouts and all that. The government has a whole lot more control over those corporations. Not that they didn't before through different secret societies and so forth, but definitely after bailouts, all these companies basically became no more than bureaucracies of the federal government. I mean, that's the way it's been since the bailouts of recent history under George W. Bush. The bailouts, there's just been all kinds of bailouts, but it all started in 1970 with that solar eclipse there. So solar eclipses are also omens of financial. I think that's really the main point I'm driving right now home, is that 1970 got solar eclipses. This is when the bailouts started happening with that free printed money. Lockheed Martin bailout in 1971. That was a $1.4 billion bailout. 1974, you had Franklin National Bank, $7.8 billion bailout. New York City was bailed out, $9.4 billion in 1975. Chrysler, it goes on and on, guys. Continental Illinois National Bank and Trust Company, savings and loan, airline industry, Bear Stearns, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Obviously, this now we're getting into recent history, $400 billion. American International Group, AIG in 2008, that was another $180 billion. And guys, it just goes on and on. We have had bailouts, and I don't know why it's not including some of the more recent bailouts, like Silvergate, that just happened in 2022, was it? Silvergate, 2023. A lot of those Silicon Valley banks that are just a bunch of gamblers with the money of people that entrusted them to just have it in the bank. They're out gambling it on the stock market on high-risk stocks, and they went illiquid. And, the lesson there that the federal government taught us is that if you are a wealthy Silicon Valley guru investor or company, your money's safe, but the rest of you guys are just worthless, scum. And the government doesn't care about bailing you out. They just care about bailing out Silicon Valley. That's what that taught us. I don't have those articles pulled up. But guys, that's another thing to be paying attention to as we see these omens, as we see these things approaching, with the culmination of these things being 2024, April 8th, just 73 days away. I can't help but point out to you that, yeah, something financial easily could be coinciding with all of this madness. So again, yeah, I've seen people do this. They fold the US dollars and you see the Hoover Dam collapsing. You see, I don't know, New York City underwater. I forget. There's all kinds of stuff with the $10 bill, $5 bill, $20 bill. Yeah, all kinds of hidden signs, guys. So let's take a look at our next topic here. Now that we talked about the New Madrid, how loaded was that? How loaded is the New Madrid? How much history is loaded into that we were never taught in history class? My goodness, guys, we have been lied to about everything. Have we not been lied to about everything? Has history been concealed from us or what? It just pisses me off. God bless you guys. Yeshua be praised. As we uncover the truth of our ancestry, of our history tonight on this beautiful set-apart day of Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to you guys. Forgot to say that. Let's take a look at Cascadia. What's going on with Cascadia, guys? Why am I saying Cascadia? Now, yeah, when I first put together the live for Wednesday, no, it was Wednesday or Monday. I think I was thinking about it Monday. I looked up the word bend, Bend, Oregon, and I was thinking, oh, God's going to bend the bow of nuclear destruction because of the abortion industry, Little Egypt being symbolic of that, and San Antonio and the healthcare industry being basically the piggyback, the system, the vehicle from which abortion is taking place. So I thought, oh, God's going to bend the bow. And that's why I was looking at Bend, Oregon. But the more I looked at the Cascadia region, I found something more interesting. I found something more tangible than Bend, Oregon, which, if you look in the Hebrew, the word bend is darak, which means to bend the bow, bend the arrows for war. So I was looking at Bend, Oregon in my original analysis of these eclipses, but now I'm looking at Cascadia, guys. Have you looked at the Cascadia subduction zone? The Cascadia subduction zone, excuse me, is a 960 kilometer, 600-mile fault at a convergent plate boundary, about 112 to 160 kilometers off the Pacific shore that stretches from northern Vancouver Island in Canada to northern California in the United States. Here's the kicker. Ready? Guys, brace yourself. It is capable of producing a 9.0 plus magnitude earthquake and tsunamis that can reach 100 feet tall. 100 feet tall. Okay. Again, thank you. Yeah, new day of spirituality. Yeah. I've been trying to warn about Cascadia since 2022. Yeah, guys. Oh my God. Okay, so why is our Elohim, why is our Father showing us a sign over Cascadia and New Madrid at the same time within a 7-year destruction period? Which I told you, my goodness, what are the odds of all these things being? What are the odds? Again, 1776, 241 years for the Northern Kingdom of Israel in the Bible. They only had 19 kings that lasted for 241 years. 1776, 241, 2017, excuse me. 1783. The Treaty of Paris, the end of the Revolutionary War, plus 241 gives you 2024. If the United States is going to be just like the Northern Kingdom of Israel, which we've committed all of their sins, sacrificing our children to Moloch, etc., if the United States is just like the Northern House of Israel, which it looks like exactly what's taking place, then it looks like this is the end, guys, this year, 2024. And I cannot help but notice these patterns with you that, okay, he's showing us the 2017 and 2024 and 2023 signs with these intersections, and the Cascadia subduction zone is one of them. 9.0 magnitude. I don't even know how to comprehend this. 100-foot tsunamis, waves 100 feet tall. Like, everybody always talks about New York City getting destroyed in all these movies, Hollywood movies, and all the propaganda machine. But God is telling us something about Cascadia, I think, and we should be paying attention to. Like, forget about what the Hollywood mainstream industrial complex is telling us. What is going on here? This is kind of what it looks like. The subduction zone is kind of here. You see the Pacific plate and the Juan de Fuca plate. You see these different plates intersecting here. You see it is off the coast, okay? And that kind of is where the intersection is actually more in line. If you take a look at it, let me show you on screen again. That's the other thumbnail, but you get my point. The intersection really kind of is off the coast rather than on the mainland itself of the X here, right? Because if again, it's not part of the image because I'd have to zoom out too much, but there is an X there as well. Again, I don't think too many people are talking about this, guys. This might be the only channel that's really talking about the fact that there's 3 X's, not just 2. And Cascadia is one of those intersections of these solar eclipses. And I'm just seeing the danger, and I want to warn you guys about it. Pray about it. If God's telling you, hey, yeah, something big's coming. Hey, if you live in that region, just pray about it. That's what this is for. That's what Shabbat's for. It's to seek God's face. And so let's look at some forecasts of what scientists are saying about the Cascadia range. Okay, the subduction zone, I should say. Prior to the 1980s, scientists thought that the subduction zone did not generate earthquakes like other subduction zones around the world, but research by Brian Atwater and Kenji Satake tied together evidence of a large tsunami on the Washington coast with documentation of an orphan tsunami in Japan. A tsunami without an associated earthquake is what an orphan tsunami is. The two pieces of the puzzle were linked, and they realized then that the subduction zone was more hazardous than previously suggested. In 2009, some geologists predicted a 10 to 14% probability that the Cascadia subduction zone will provide an event of magnitude 9.0 or higher in the next 50 years. In 2010, studies suggested that the risk could be as high as 37%. Guys, oh my goodness, man. That's more than a third. 33%, 37% for earthquakes of magnitude 8.0 or higher. Okay. That's just to give you a little synopsis, okay? You can read more about the Cascadia, do more research on it. I found this YouTube video here by this guy named Deepside. He hardly has any subscribers, but this video has a lot of views. No one's talking about it. Let me just play you a little clip from this video here by Deepside. The title of his video is like North America's worst earthquake is coming. So let's see what he has to say about it. Check this out.
Based on current data, there is a 20 to 30% probability that a megathrust earthquake will occur in the southernmost region of the Cascadia subduction zone in the next 50 years, and a 10 to 15% chance that the earthquake will rupture the entire subduction zone. This data is concerning and puts the possibility of a catastrophic earthquake into perspective, but recent efforts to monitor the risk of earthquakes have been deployed, and the data has been extremely important for both prediction and risk assessment. Through drilling and monitoring, researchers work to understand and mitigate tsunami and seismic risk in the Pacific Northwest.
Anyway, you can check out more of his video. It's a good analysis. I recommend it. You can Google that or search that video. North America's worst earthquake is coming. So people are saying that, I mean, people are saying this is even worse than New Madrid. And we saw how bad the New Madrid was. The fact that, again, these intersections are happening are absolutely insane. I remember I told you we were going to spend most of our time on the New Madrid. So really, that's all I have on the Cascadia for now. You can do more research on that. There's, based on conversations I had with Jeff, like there's actual bubbles coming out of the ocean floor. People are scuba diving down there and researching and studying these things. And there's little bubbles coming out of the plate. And guys, look, if there is what's called a mega thrust, let me just share this real quick. If there's what's called a mega thrust, meaning, okay, somehow the plates are activated, right? I'm not a geologist. I'm not very good at all this tectonic stuff, right? I'm just a biblical guy. I just study the Bible, right? But if there's a magnitude 8.0, 9.0 type of earthquake, which they're saying, hey, 37% chance for at least an 8.0 in the next 50 years, guys, God's pointing his finger right now. So, heads up. Anyone who's wise, like the Magi of Jesus's day, should know something's coming. If there's a mega thrust, it could actually activate Mount St. Helens and cause a volcanic eruption coupled with the movement of the plates because they're all connected. So you're looking at a Mount St. Helens situation, 100-foot tsunami waves. I mean, guys, look, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. But when my father says, you're going to know that I'm the Lord, I take this kind of thing very seriously. Because, yes, we've seen shadows and types of these kinds of fulfillments throughout the Bible. But you and I know that we are end times Israel here in the United States. White, black, yellow, brown, red, green, doesn't matter what color your skin is. We are the lost tribes in the United States, right? It's not a racial thing. It's a God thing. If you call on the name of Jesus, we're a Christian nation for the most part. We fell away from that, but my goodness, calling upon the name of Jesus, how many mega churches are in this country? How many people like Jesus? How many people are like, oh, he's a good teacher. Yeah, I follow his teachings, even though they're complacent, laissez-faire type of people. We are a Christian nation because it is embedded into our heart and soul and consciousness for the most part. Now, yes, Gen Z has become the generation of debauchery. Most of them identify as LGBT plus, all that, but it's in our consciousness. We are a Christian people because we are descendants of Abraham. Most of us are. A lot of us are. A lot of us come to the United States, just like my family did. I'm first generation Mexican American, and we adopt the values of Protestant Christianity, evangelical Christianity, or any flavor thereof, including Mormonism and different types of sects, cults, and offshoots. But we have a consciousness inside of us that we are the lost tribes. And God is saying, you're going to know, you're going to be reminded, you're going to be awakened at the fact that I am the Lord. As I just cannot help but wonder what he's about to do to finally get people to understand there's no such thing as coincidence. There's only the will of God. There's no such thing as luck, chance. That's all fiction. There's only God's will. That's why we cast lots. That's why, when you cast a lot for a decision, that's God's will, because there's no such thing as chance. You put it in his hands. And if for all these events and all these numerologies and all these things to be converging, it's beyond the realm of speculation, in my opinion. It's beyond, way above and beyond anything I could have possibly ever imagined going into this analysis, which is why it's become a 3-part analysis. Now, remember, we talked about San Antonio in the last live. And what I didn't realize is that there's something over there called and again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, okay? So pardon me if I'm wrong. Balcones Fault Line. The Balcones Fault Line is actually something that extends along the highway, the Interstate 35, all the way up to Oklahoma City. let's take a look at what this kind of looks like on a map, get a visual of what we're talking about here with the balcones or balcones, however you pronounce it. I like to say balcones because I like to transliterate stuff because I speak Spanish, but balcones kind of looks like this. Oh, where's my image? Here it is. You can kind of see, okay, yes, it goes through San Antonio all the way up I-35, just like I told you, even up to Oklahoma City. That's kind of an overview of it. Sorry, overview. There is seismic activity in Texas, by the way. I don't know if you know this, but here's this one article from San Antonio Express News. Let me show. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize it wasn't sharing. I'll show you the map again in a second. Earthquakes do happen in Texas. Here are the top 5 quakes ever recorded. Top 5 Texas quakes ever recorded. By the way, yeah, there's been magnitude 5s. Magnitude 5.8 was Valentine in 1931. There's a 5.7 called Marathon in 1995. 5.4 in Reeves County in 2022. Another one. 5.2 in 2023. A 5.2 in Midland in 2022. And yeah, they happen in Texas. Texas, it can be a shaky place. It has earthquakes. Now, let me, once again, because I didn't realize it wasn't sharing, that happens sometimes. That's what it looks like on my screen. That's the balcones fault line there. Okay, let's take a look at this. There's kind of consensus that, yeah, it's not very active. This is what they say. It's remained inactive for a long time, with last activity being during the Neogene period, right? They're talking about evolutionary biology nonsense, some creationist intelligent design all day, not evolution. I don't believe in any Big Bang garbage. You guys know that. But basically they're saying, nothing to see here. It's all pretty normal. But you believe it or not, guys, yeah, remember, a lake, Caddo Lake, was formed when the New Madrid went off. It wouldn't surprise me if we had data and if we had, records of all these things that the balcones maybe went off simultaneously with the New Madrid. I don't know. Probably no one really knows that kind of information. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's maybe a triple. So what I'm saying is there could be a triple activation possible. I'm not expecting it on April 8th, by the way. I'm not, because remember, even in 1811, they saw the solar eclipse, and then 3 months later, they had the New Madrid happening in December. So September to December, it was 3 months later. So I'm not saying that April 8th, we should expect all kinds of earthquakes, but I'm saying there could be a triple event of Cascadia, New Madrid, and Balcones being activated at the same time. A great shaking of the United States might be coming. It could be a triple. You got, okay, the reason why the New Madrid is really bad, $300 billion in estimated economic damage. It's probably more than that now. But you have all the breadbasket there. You got a lot of farms. You have a lot of people farming beef, corn, soy. You have a lot of the nation's agriculture there. Guys, that would result in starvation of the United States if something happened in New Madrid these days, because we're so dependent on such a small number of producers, and a lot of them are concentrated in the breadbasket of the United States, the prairies, the Great Plains, and obviously the Midwest. Guys, it's really bad. If something happens in New Madrid, it affects all of us, not just here in the United States either. We export a lot of grain. Mexico gets so much of its corn from the United States. Most of Mexico's corn for their tortillas, which is a staple of Mexico, comes from the United States. Cascadia, the Pacific Northwest, is where the fruit comes from, not just California, but Cascadia, the fruit comes. A lot of fruit. And Corvallis and all that area is very rich, fertile ground for growing. But remember, Cascadia extends to also Northern California. Northern California also produces. Maybe the San Andreas could be activated and all this, but we're not being shown San Andreas. San Andreas is not where the intersections are. So we're really looking at Cascadia, Balcones, New Madrid. This is where we're keeping our eyes on. And even with just these three, we could see some pretty bad stuff. But remember what I showed you last live? And then we're going to talk about war in the United States in a moment. But last live, let me just show you. It's going through Eagle Pass, remember? You can see it on screen. I know it's kind of small, but Eagle Pass is right where the upcoming eclipse of April 8th, 2024 is coming. Guys, Eagle Pass is one place right now. Obviously, it's a big place for immigration. And Texas, the whole entire border is really heating up. I know I posted this in the Telegram. There's a link down below to check out the Telegram if you have not already, but this is from Zero Hedge. War? Question mark. 25 red states rally round Texas as battle brews with Biden over the border. Biden basically wants to with executive order and all that, tear down barricades and border infrastructure to just let people come on in. And so the Republicans are finally having a problem with it and putting their foot down. Gee, I wonder why now. What took them so long, right? A coalition of red states has rallied around Texas after Governor Greg Abbott invoked the state's constitutional right to self-defense due to the migrant crisis, which he deemed an invasion. And this is something that, again, it's developing, it's ongoing. These are the 25 different states from Florida, Alaska, Nevada. All these different states are rallying behind Abbott, Governor Abbott. And again, he's got the National Guard being deployed and activated. There's a lot of footage of these types of things. Abbott's not backing down. Biden said, no, you have to, you can't do this. You cannot do this. Biden is contending with Texas, saying you got to keep the border open. You got to keep it wide open. Let anybody come on in. That's been happening this whole entire time. Even with Trump, honestly, I read to you again the Muckraker article saying that illegal immigration was not as deterred as you would have thought, even during Trump's presidency. It was just more optics and strong, kind of appearing like a strong man, a bully pulpit type of thing, but it wasn't really super effective in deterring a lot of the Chinese illegals of coming in that are CCP loyalists and so forth. I covered that. Again, I covered that in this live right here, guys. You got to go check that out. The Darien Gap prophecy, massive. I feel like I've already covered so much of this, so I'm not going to take too much time right now, but Texas is heating up. Texas is where the eclipse enters first. And I just can't help but notice that all these things are heating up 73 days out from the April 8th eclipse. Why does Abbott care now? This is the main thing. And look, I don't know where you guys are on this whole deal. I don't choose right or left. I think it's all controlled. It's all controlled opposition. If you look at 2022, Abbott was saying that there was laws in place. I've researched this enough to know Abbott is playing a role here. Okay, this isn't legitimate grassroots, right? Self-defense. God bless him. He's in a wheelchair. God bless him. I pray that he comes to the knowledge of Yeshua and is obedient to his Torah and all that stuff. But I'm telling you, Abbott is playing a role here. I don't trust any of this. I don't trust any of the optics. This is highly suspicious. Abbott was letting illegals in this whole entire time. In 2022, there was a report by Stu Peters. He had a special guest who was one of the state troopers for many, many, many decades. And he was saying, Abbott actually signed some laws into place that said that if there were 10, for instance, here's just an example. If there were 10 illegal migrants crossing the border together, if they just said that they were family, like cousins, they were allowed to go and enter the United States without ever being apprehended. You cannot touch them as Border Patrol. You cannot touch them if they claim to be family. Even boyfriends and girlfriends were considered to be untouchable according to laws that Greg Abbott had passed prior to this. So why does he care now? Why is there a big uproar now? The borders, oh my gosh, the border's open. Let's do something. Why now? This is inauthentic. This is controlled opposition. If you guys don't see the optics here, you're being hoodwinked. The only reason that my illegal migration had been really deterred up to this point is because actually Mexico, of all things, were kind of cracking down. Illegal crossings plummet in Eagle Pass as Mexico cracks down on migrants in surrounding area. Of course, this is from Border Hawk. I recommended this channel. It's a very much grassroots journalists. They're just boots on the ground. And they've been saying that illegal crossings into Eagle Pass, Texas have substantially declined amid a crackdown by Mexican authorities in the state of Coahuila. Border Hawk correspondent Efrain Gonzalez visited a nearly empty shelter in the border city of Piedras Negras, through which tens of thousands of migrants were funneling just weeks ago. So now keep in mind, they're just going to shuffle around and go to Arizona. They'll go somewhere else, right? But the point is that it's because of Mexico cracking down that Eagle Pass actually has been seeing some stability. This post is from 8 hours ago. So this is very fresh intel from Border Hawk. And they are taking a look at this day in and day out. And so what they're saying is this development of Mexico cracking down on immigration is likely part of a deal struck by Biden and the AMLO administrations at the end of 2023. So think about what's going on. Now, all of a sudden, Abbott is saying, oh, our border, oh, we're being invaded. Oh, we got to do something. All these red states just rally together. Oh, they're such brothers in arms. When the illegal immigration is actually down at Eagle Pass, And why does Abbott care all of a sudden? Why didn't he care before? Why doesn't he care? Why didn't he care in 2021 immediately when Biden took office? This is all optics, guys. We're being played here. Guys, we're being played. They're trying to start a war, brother against brother. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. Look, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not that we're necessarily to expect earthquakes, but earthquakes are a sign that the land is divided. The land is divided, my brothers and sisters. You gotta see it like this too. There's different angles to this. Because I've heard a few Bible commentators talk about this verse. I'll bring it up. In Genesis 10:25, it says, to Eber, the Hebrew, Eber, that's where we get the word Hebrew from, were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. So this is after the flood. This is after the flood. Humankind begins to spread out. And some people say that Pangea, the one continent, was divided into multiple continents through the movement of tectonic plates and continental plates. And it was in the days of Peleg, which means division, that this happened. Again, that's just my side note. I could be wrong about that. But what I'm saying is, could it be that God is showing us these fault lines because not necessarily that there's going to be earthquakes, but maybe he's showing us that the land is going to be divided. And we're already starting to see that in Texas with all these developments happening all of a sudden. All of a sudden, people are starting to care about the border. Guys, how suspicious is this? How sus is this? Come on, guys. You guys know better than that. Don't let them fool you. Don't let the optics trick you. They are all part of Mystery Babylon. They work for the same people. Guys, God bless you. Love you. Continue to stay tuned. And more lives coming Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Overcome Babylon. And we have a special guest. I think he's coming on Monday. It's still pending, okay? But we're going to have Cyrus Harding coming back on with us to also share his analysis of what he sees coming with the Aleph Tav prophecy of the three eclipses and some of his intel from his military linguistic, NSA linguist background. Excited to have him on Monday, potentially. I need to confirm that with him, but it looks like we're going to have Cyrus Harding back on. Until then, guys, God bless you. Enjoy your Shabbat. Rest, relax, refresh, and we'll see you guys. Love Cyrus. Hey, Abraham, relax, bro. Relax. Your brain expansion is overloading. Sorry, guys. Look, I love you guys, but I got to give you the intel because it's part of my job. It's a joy. It's a passion. Hopefully, you guys sharing that passion with me. Keep your eyes on the prize. Jesus Christ, the righteous. His will be done, and they are going to know that he is the Lord when it's all said and done. So I'm excited. I don't know about you, but I'm excited because people aren't going to be running away from him anymore, living a laissez-faire, lukewarm, Laodicean, plastic, complacent Christian life anymore. A lot of people are going to wake up. All right, guys, take care. Look at you very soon, and be blessed. It was a pleasure to be here with you. God bless you.